What is going on, everybody? It's me again, Gold and Blue Dude, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day, and yes, I promise I will get to some college basketball videos. March Madness is getting here faster than I ever realized, so I am going to get them out there, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page. We have a wider selection over there, and don't forget about my PayPal contest. Guys, this is a great prize. The person with the highest donation at the end of this month will receive a brand new 42-inch Roku Smart TV worth $300. And yes, Golden Blue Dude is now on TikTok. I will try to leave the link to my TikTok channel in here as well. So if you only want a little bit of Golden Blue Dude, check me out on TikTok as well. And for whatever reason, I cannot keep Auburn out of my videos for more than a week. That's right, I am doing another video on Auburn. There's a lot of news that has happened at Auburn in the past couple of months. First of all, Auburn has lost a lot of talent through the transfer portal. That is a fact. 20 players to be exact. Then on top of that, their offensive coordinator was fired. The new offensive coordinator only lasted 6 weeks. Then he was out of town, gone, left, not coming back. Then on top of that, their defensive coordinator, Derek Mason, a great defensive coordinator, left Auburn, went to Oklahoma State, and took a pay cut at the same position. Defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. Look out for the Cowboys in 2022. That defense, as good as what it was last year, could be even better this year. And then, of course, the investigation on Brian Harsin allegedly had a mistress from Boise State. He brought her with him to Auburn and hired her as an assistant and all that personal turmoil going on. He goes on vacation, finds out he's under investigation. It doesn't look like his vacation was ruined because he's still as abrasive as ever, so it looks like it didn't really affect him. Well, they get through the investigation, couldn't find just cause, so they're keeping Brian Harsin. But there is this cloud over him now, because he knows that they tried to fire him, and they're probably going to keep trying to fire him unless he produces on the field. So this will be a make or break season for Auburn. So now we find out that they are promoting from within, and that's not always necessarily a bad thing. But from what we've seen that's happened to Auburn recently, it could be a bad thing. It could mean nobody wants to come to Auburn. So here are the two guys that they have promoted from within. The first one, Eric Casal. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If I'm not, I'm sure you will correct me. Now, he does have experience. Don't get me wrong, he does have experience. He has experience at Boise State, Fresno State, Washington, and Colorado. And it looks like the offenses under this guy has actually done pretty well. So this might not be a bad thing at all. Now let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. We have defensive coordinator Rick Bellantoni. Once again, might have mispronounced his name, and you'll probably correct me about that if I did. Now, he also has experience. Utah State, Buffalo, Washington State, and FAU. Defense is okay under him, but not all that good. I'm more impressed about the offensive coordinator that they promoted. But my point is, promoting from within isn't necessarily a bad thing. This could be a good thing, but it does mean that nobody wants to come to Auburn. I'm sorry, that's what this means. If you're promoting from within and you had other coordinators and they left or you fired them and this and that, whatever, it means nobody wants to come to Auburn. So there's something stirring on the plains. So Brian Harsin has to produce some wins in 2022. Let's look at their schedule real quick. First, they get Mercer. That is a win. We already know that. FCS. Then they get San Jose State. That is a win. San Jose State had a pretty good season in 2020, but they're on a downward trend. That's a win. They get Penn State at home. I do expect Penn State to have a bounce-back year, but I think Auburn's going to be hot at the beginning of the season, and it is a home game and a revenge game. That is a win. After that, they get Missouri at home. I don't think Missouri's going to be all that much better than last year. Maybe a little bit. It's in the Plains. That should be a win. Then they get LSU at home. This one's an interesting one. LSU just went out and got Brian Kelly. I think Brian Kelly will have a ton of success at LSU. I mean, come on. If Ed Orgeron can win a national championship at LSU, Brian Kelly will win a national championship at LSU. I think he did all he could do at Notre Dame. I think he did. I mean, Notre Dame is supposed to be this big brand. They have this contract with NBC, but he took them to their limits right now. Notre Dame's going to have to change some things. Otherwise, they're not going to see 10 wins for a very long time. So Notre Dame, get your act together. Anyways, Brian Kelly to LSU. This is going to be an interesting game, but it's on the Plains, so it should be a win, but not a guaranteed win. So that's one of those 50-50 football games in my eyes right now. Then they go on the road to Georgia. That's going to be a loss. I'm just going to call it now. I don't see Auburn going on the road and upsetting Georgia. I think Georgia's going to have a decent defense. Stetson Bennett will be good enough not to lose a game. He's not an elite quarterback, but now he does have some confidence, and he has a national championship under his belt. That's going to be a loss. At Ole Miss. Auburn beat Ole Miss last year. People forget about that because they lost 5 straight after that. But they did beat Ole Miss. Not this year. They're going to Oxford, and they probably will get beat by Ole Miss, probably by a couple touchdowns. Ole Miss is going to have great offense. Fortunately, they get their bye week after that. So, under what I'm seeing, we're looking at either 5-2 or 4-3, depending on that LSU game. After that, they get Arkansas at home. Last year, they did beat Arkansas on the road. They could beat them again. That's a 50-50 football game. I think Arkansas could have a letdown year. Could. So I think Auburn splits that Penn State-Arkansas game. They'll win one, lose one. Then at Mississippi State, I think they will lose at Mississippi State. Last year, they lost to Mississippi State at home. I didn't see that one coming. I thought they were a much better team than Mississippi State, but I guess not. This year on the road, Mike Leach is going to have Mississippi State stepping in the right direction again. I think this is a loss for Auburn. So we're looking at 6-3 or 5-4 at this point. Then they get Texas A&M at home. I know Texas A&M had one of the greatest recruiting classes of all time this year, and they did beat Auburn last year 23 in embarrassing fashion, and that's what set Auburn on that downward trend. I don't like this matchup for Texas A&M, though. I just don't, and it is on the Plains, another revenge game. I'm going to give this to Auburn. So now we're looking at either 7-3 or 6-4. All depending on that LSU game. After that, they get Western Kentucky at home. That's a win, easy enough. We're looking at 7-4 or 6-5 at this point in time. Finally, last game of the year at Alabama. Alabama's going to beat the brakes off of Auburn. I'm sorry, I know it's a rivalry game, but Alabama's going to field one of their all-time greatest teams this year. I expect Alabama to win the national championship and go undefeated. So, we are looking at either a 7-5 or 6-6 record for Auburn. I think Auburn's season comes down to 3 games, and all 3 of them are home games. Penn State, LSU, and Arkansas. If they can win all 3 of those games, they could actually have a 10-win season. If they win 2 and lose 1, we're looking at an 8-win season probably. If they win 1 and lose 2, that's when you get in the 7-5 range. And if you lose all 3, that's a bad season. You might not even make a bowl. Is that good enough to keep Brian Harsin? I don't think it should be. But I don't know what they're thinking. They fired Gus Malzahn after going 6-4. And I don't see any drastic improvements this year. Maybe the fact that they don't go on a 5-game losing streak, that's an improvement. I don't know. Brian Harsin, man, he has got a lot to clean up at Auburn. Auburn has a bad image right now in the eyes of the media because of him. So he needs to clean up the image of Auburn, and he needs to clean up the brand of Auburn on the football field. Can he do it? So I'm trying to figure out how much faith the Auburn fan base has in Brian Harsin. So take it all together. Everything all together. The terrible season you had last year, according to Auburn standards, it's a terrible season. Let's not lie about it. All the talent you lost, the offensive coordinator getting fired, then the new offensive coordinator leaving just 6 weeks later, the defensive coordinator leaving for a lesser job, the investigation of Brian Harsin, and then Auburn having to promote from within because it seems like nobody wants to come to Auburn. To me, the only saving grace would be if Auburn were to have a 9-3 or a 10-win season. That's just my opinion. What is the saving grace for the Auburn fan? Are you willing to forget everything that I mentioned if they go 6-6 or 7-5? That's a question that you'll have to ask because I'm not an Auburn fan. Obviously, I'm a West Virginia fan. I'm just giving you my opinion. So y'all let me know in the comment section whether you are an Auburn fan or not. I don't care. Just give me your opinion about this situation because I think the saving grace has to be a 9 or 10-win season. Y'all let me know in the comment section, and of course, I'll let you know my opinion to what your opinion was. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.